This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you very much. This meeting is being recorded. I'd like to welcome everybody and just say that according to the Public Meetings Act, we have to have both a in-person board meeting and an online board meeting, and that is taking place now. The online location is 1108 11th Street, Suite 303. Online is through Zoom, and you're here, so you know how to find it. I'd like a motion to approve today's agenda if people had a chance to review it and would like to comment further on it. Commissioners, are there things that you'd like removed from the agenda, things you'd like added to the agenda, or corrections of anything in the agenda?
If there's any time left near the end and we got some time to fill, I'd like to talk a little more about fire protection ideas.
All right, I will add that fire protection issue to our new business section, if that's okay. I think we'll have time. Anything else? All righty. So anything with the addition of adding fire protection to new business? Any other comments?
I'd like to commend Commissioner McLaughlin for this wonderful map. It puts it right in the neighborhoods very well, and people can relate to it, I think, really well. Thank you.
Thanks.
I
But
would
that was
agree
work
with
by
that
students.
commentation. Thank you, John, for the many things that you do for us. Much appreciated. And please, I didn't mean to interrupt you, John.
That was done by students. It was a collaborative effort. They should deserve the bulk of the credit.
It's great to give honor to them as well, and give them our thanks. Many have contributed to the work of the Park District, and we very much appreciate their labor. Barbara, you have your hand up.
I just wanted to ask if that map is on the website.
Probably not. Yeah.
I believe it came in an email, and we can make it available on the website as part of the minutes of this meeting, I think, if that's acceptable to you, John.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Great.
I'd be into printing up 100 copies just to give out to people when they're visiting the site, you know.
So
Yeah.
for that
Some of
project,
those-
students.
Some of those
also-
Jochins, or whatever they're called, can give them out.
That was a project students completed this fall. Excuse me. And they also mapped all the trails that they could find.
Oh,
It was after many of the autumn leaves had fallen, so I don't think they got all of the trails, but certainly many more trails that are on the park department's official map. So there's a map of the trails. Well, and then they created two maps of the version that you showed. One was the one he showed that shows the impact, the extent of the impacts of all trails. And then there's also a map of the impacts of just the trails in the park department's official map.
Be interesting to see the population density around the park, around the forest there, when we started versus now. There's definitely been a big impact from the sea pines area there, all that housing that went in, all the extra dogs and bikes and such. You know.
That it'd also be interesting to if we could collect some use survey data, just recording how many users are where, and then even break that down in kind of use. That would require some considerations on sampling, when and where you're sampling, how often you're sampling, and all that sort of thing. That would require quite a bit of time and labor on someone's part. But it'd be the kind of thing I would expect the Parks Department to want to do to inform their decision, but it would require some resources to do.
Cool.
So what the issue we're talking about is the agenda. Do we want to add this as a formal agenda item, or do we want to discuss it in some other way, or is it?
Maybe Frank, really what this would do is to inform some of the points that you sent out yesterday or day before regarding the various impacts. It would
Just,
give us a better idea of just the magnitude of the impacts we're talking about.
I mean, the name of the people that live in the neighborhoods is increased by, you can just find that from voters' guides or property tax, just the density. That's what I'm saying. The neighborhood's grown more dense over there, so therefore there's a lot more impact.
Right, and what you're really pointing towards, I think, is a gap or a deficiency in the park master plan, where I don't recall any plan to monitor or measure the extent of use or the distribution.
Well, we can certainly discuss this further on the old business conservation easement progress of the city and Lockland Land Trust. There's many other issues there, but I think we could include the relevant parts of this to that discussion if we wanted. Any other modifications of the agenda for today? Hearing none, I'd appreciate a motion and a second to approve it.
Move we approve the agenda.
Mr. Beatty moves.
I'll second.
Mr. Hymas seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
John Hymas, did you?
No.
John, did you
Frank,
vote?
you're freezing.
I'm freezing.
Yes,
I don't feel cold and I see my lips moving.
you're good now, but you've sort of gone in and out once or twice.
Okay, yeah. John Hymas, did you vote in yes or no?
Yes, I raised my hand. I said yes.
I'm sorry, I missed. Yeah, I was looking
Okay.
at everybody else. So that the unanimously our agenda is approved as amended. I think everybody knows everybody here, but that masked person down below at the bottom, that is Robin Albro in her 1-star cap, dark glasses and mask, but just so everybody knows. And then everyone I think knows Bob Carmichael well, and then our other guests have already been introduced, and we're happy to have you. Thank you for coming. I'd like to go ahead and have general public comments. So if Mensa, Barbara, or Tip, if you'd like to make a public comment, have at it. If you just want to listen, that's fine too. Mensa.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see where the Wacom Land Trust is when we get to the discussion of the amendments. So I just want to reiterate that. Don't miss that part.
We'll be talking about that front and center, I think. And Bob, I think I had asked for an item to be added to the agenda, and I don't see it offhand, but Robin, was an executive session to discuss some of the issues of a legal nature added, or can we add that?
Yeah, it's there
Were
somewhere.
you going off the amended agenda that got sent out yesterday, Frank, or were you going off the original agenda?
Let me look and see what I got.
It did say amended at the top and also in the top right corner, but at the top of it, it's in the heading.
You are exactly right. So I had them both up here, and I was looking at the other one. So let me come back to that. Yeah, got it. Okay, so it is there, and that's great. Now let me see if I can get all these other things out of the way so I can find everybody on the screen again. Any other public comments, Barbara or Tip?
Just a question, is that amended agenda shown on the linked on the website above the Zoom information? That's the correct agenda?
It says amended agenda with today's date, on it, but it should say amended.
Agenda 03222023, that's the correct one?
It says amended on it. It's posted on the website. I didn't resend it out to everybody, but
Right.
it should be, if you're going off the website, I updated both places that it is on the website.
Good, I've got it.
And Tip, I can probably email it to you right now if you want it.
I think I have it, so
Okay, great, good. All righty.
I wouldn't mind the map though.
Yeah, no.
Great. We'll make that available as well. Any other public comment? Barbara?
Well, this is just a little plug for the Fairhaven Neighbors tree and plant sale on Saturday. If any of you are looking for some trees to plant, it's from 10 to 3 at the Hillcrest Church parking lot. It's the 35th annual from the neighborhood, which I think is really remarkable. And the neighborhood uses the proceeds, some for the neighborhood and some for designated nonprofits. And as a group, just decide those nonprofits every year. The other piece with it that I was really excited about is the Million Trees, the Welcome Million Trees project is going to be part of it. And the neighborhood bought 100 trees to give out to participants and particularly children, if they will plant them. So
Wonderful. And one more time, what's the location, date, and time?
it's this Saturday, the 25th, 10 to 3. And it's Fairhaven Parkway and 14th, the Hillcrest Church parking lot. So if you're on,
It's in Happy Valley neighborhood, by the way.
yes, it is. Just across the street from
Happy Valley, the tree planting this neighborhood.
Yeah. Anyway.
But thank you very much for that great news and reminder. Now we can put that on, it'll be in our video for everybody to watch. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, Tip.
Just by way of my public comment, then I'll mute myself, but I don't see Andrew Mariner or Rand Jack here, but I just want the board and other guests to know I'm pretty much ready to rant about illegal zoning, phony value, sticking it to low to moderate income neighborhoods, and the rights of buyers to stipulate the use of the property. So I think that's...
Tip, it's time to rant right now. Don't hold back, buddy. If you want to comment, this is your opportunity. Go at it.
Well, you're not the people I need to rant at.
Okay, well, we're happy to hear what you got to say for sure. Well, thank you, everybody. So moving to now to after the general comment, we usually have a Parks Advisory Board meeting report, and I don't know, John Hymas, if you were able to attend or if you have any knowledge of what they're up to and want to report anything.
I wasn't able to attend, but I heard a rumor that John Blethyn kind of blew up at Nicole, but I didn't want to start rumors. I don't know what it entailed, but I was hoping that he would attend this meeting.
We often attends and he often comes late, so maybe we'll still get the opportunity to hear that report when he shows up about what happened at that meeting.
I have them. Let's
Great. So education and PR in the community, and review the elevator speech and press release. Given Ed did draft and I did revise an elevator speech. Given the developments with respect to the city's current position, and given the lack of finality where that's going to land and the dynamic of it, we decided to hold off on doing that until we find out some very important information about how we're going to move forward. And so I think it's premature to have that elevator speech done until we resolve those issues. Ed did a great job, worked hard at it. I reviewed it. I made some changes, but as it is a very dynamic situation, I think that we plan to hold off until some of those critical issues are resolved, because they could take the whole elevator speech. The board letter to Public Works on Urban Forestry Management Plan. As of March 17th, there was still no response. Any thoughts or comments about that? I can report something. Actually, and you might find this interesting, John and John McLaughlin. And there is an additional resource. Ralph Hoggerud, who is the lead person for USGS on these LiDAR studies have been done multiple times. I actually spent the weekend with him this weekend. He had a lot of stuff. He said the typical LiDAR is incorrect in the elevation of trees because they can't really hit the top of it. And so what they get is where the branches really come out. So typically they underestimate the height of trees pretty significantly. And typically there's a correction. Now you probably already know that. It was news to me that there's a corrective process applied to get the actual height of the tree, because what they actually hit, they can't hit that tiny little tip of the tree. So they hit the bigger branches. And that's a pretty standard thing. It makes me wonder if they did the correction. Do you have thoughts about that?
Yes. So if you consider the distance between the apical meristem, the very tip of the tree, and where the next whorl of branches come out, or even the one after that, that distance is far less than the discrepancy that I measured. Right. So I measured discrepancies of upwards of 50 feet.
Whoa.
Right. The error correction for missing the tip of the
50
tree is not going to be anywhere near that large.
Thank you for that knowledge. And perhaps it's time that we sent them a reminder that we have inquired about that and we would like a response. Is that something that, I mean, this is just a suggestion, and being the chair, I don't make motions. So if any of you think we should follow up on that, let's talk about it.
So I don't know if this is jumping the gun on our agenda, because the board letter to the urban forestry management plan is on the agenda. But if we look at the city's schedule for that plan, they are scheduled to revise the stage 3 of that plan, the actual plan, what they plan to do, up through the end of this month, and then release it for public comment starting next month. And so you would hope that they would have the courtesy to reply to our letter before they release it to the public, and treat us more than just a member of the public as any other constituency, because we have contributed financially and substantially to that plan. But I don't know. They could be just ignoring us. They could be, I mean, what they've done so far is basically dismiss our information. And they could be doing that again. They did ask for the data, and we have provided them the data. And so it would be, again, we've made the argument that to continue to deny what we've been providing them is science denial. And for a science-based plan to perpetuate science denial would undermine the confidence in city government. And I don't think any of us want to go there, including the city itself. But again, when they come out with the final plan, or when they come out with not the final, but the third phase of the actual plan that we released to the public, that should include any information that we provide, and it should include a response to what we provided. And if it doesn't, then there's a really big problem. We ought to be concerned there's a problem already because we haven't heard from them. So again, as a scientist, we're now getting beyond my area of expertise, how to respond effectively to get an agency to be responsible. I'd be welcome inputs and ideas and insights from anyone else.
Bob, could I ask you for a thought about from a point of view of a non-responsiveness of the Parks Department and city government, is there an appropriate step for us to take at this point when they appear to have been unresponsive? You're muted, but it doesn't look like you're talking either.
No, I was working on getting unmuted. There really isn't although I would expect at this point there isn't. At the time of plan, when they are adopting the final plan, then I would expect there will be responses to comments, another round of comments and responses, and I think that would be an opportunity to point out all the prior comments and how those comments have not been answered at all. Unfortunately, there's not really a process beyond that before the plan comes forward. And at this point, what we can do is continue to send letters, but there's no real mechanism to force the city to respond.
Well, I could say that one thing, I was out riding around a little bit this week, and I noticed that the parks and the public works now have their own combined building. They have this giant brown monolith that rises out of the neighborhood over on Carolina Street, I think it is. And so they'll be talking to each other more, at least, parks and public works, because they'll be in the same building. So maybe things will get a little better in the future.
You have a point of information, Barbara?
I went on the tour of the building, and it's operations. So the administration is still over at City Hall, but the operations for parks and public works are part of the new facility.
Thank you for that. That's helpful. John, would it be acceptable to wait longer and for the next phase of this, or do you think we should respond now?
I think it, again, first of all, this is public works, it's not parks, although parks did include flawed data or flawed results in their master plan. But this is a project of public works. It would be in their interest to reply to us directly. I think it would not serve their interest to for their reply to be in whatever revisions or responses they have in their final or third phase. But again, I defer to anyone with deeper wisdom on how to interact with a city agency, but I think we've done our job. We've done our work, and the ball's really in their court.
I'll just say that I agree with you, John. I think they can be as foolish or as wise as they choose, and how that looks to the public and how the public responds to that, I think is really their issue and not ours. But I really appreciate the work you've done. I really appreciate your contribution, both financially, of your time and effort, and of the quality of the work that you always do. So I'm very appreciative. We all are, and I hope that from time, and I'm certainly willing to help with that as well when it comes time to speak out publicly as it's publicly reviewed.
I mean, basically, it comes down to if there is not a revision, at least in the status of those two forests, then this is science denied, and we ought to come out very strongly and publicly and vocally in condemning that. But again, I'll wait with with hope and optimism that they will recognize this for what it is and revise their work based on the data.
Thank you for your work, John. We were going to move into executive session at this point to discuss the maintenance of real property, assignment of conservation easement pursuant to the RCW 4230.110 subsection 1 subsection C. And so what that usually means is we set some period of time at the end of which we would come back and into public meeting. These are internal discussions about a legal issue that we need to pursue. We could move this to another page in the agenda to make it more convenient for our guests so that we don't have you all waiting. You're all welcome to wait at the end, and we will come back and say something about what we've decided as well, to have some closure about it. And I would be happy to either put this at the end of the agenda or go into it now. My sense is that this is probably something like a 20 to 30-minute discussion. And so I would do the pleasure of our commissioners. What would you like to do?
Out of respect for the time that some of our guests have given in attending the meeting, if they have anything they want to say, I did see Tip raise his hand. I suggest we provide that opportunity before we go into executive session.
I presume that was about the letter to Public Works and Parks about the urban forestry management plan. And I guess I need to do a little more research on that. I didn't see it in the documents section.
It's actually not about that, Tip. That isn't what the executive session would be about. The executive session would be about.
No, before going to executive session,
Oh.
the previous discussion.
Sure, okay.
Yeah, I raised my hand because I wondered maybe there could be a brief kind of thumbnail sketch of the issue, because I don't really see much urban forestry taking place in the community forest if I have if my image is right. But I'll talk to Hugh about it and maybe Johnny, and I'll get a little more up to speed. So
I think in a nutshell, and correct me when I'm wrong, John McLaughlin, there's a disparity between what is in the report from their consultants, which I believe is Diamond up in BC, and what John was able to actually measure in a few cases. And then John went through and systematically measured trees both in the Chuckanut Community Forest and in Seahome on Seahome Hill in the Arboretum. And there were significant discrepancies. I hadn't realized they were as much as 50 feet, but that's a big discrepancy. It's a significant, and they generally underestimated the size and therefore perhaps the age of these trees significantly. It appears to be a systematic error that they're making. We wrote them because this is the parcel we're responsible for. And John also included data in other locations, hoping that they would verify their own numbers, which would be the upright thing to do. I think would be to go in and measure these things. You can measure them in reality, not just using these LiDAR flyover data. And that's what hasn't been responded to. So it's a substantial discrepancy between actual measured heights and their heights that they got from their LiDAR study by flying over.
okay.
Adequate summary, John, sort of?
Yeah, I mean, that it leads to a qualitative difference where they rated these forests as young.
Mhm.
And if you consider both the heights of the trees and the ages of the trees, they're clearly mature forests.
Mhm.
And that points to, basically undermines confidence in the entire report if the foundation is based on erroneous data. The other component of this is about wildlife connectivity, in which they used methods that were discredited 40 years ago, and ended up with results that are considerably less reliable than what Ann Eisinger came up with 20 years ago. And so they're
I'm shocked.
and that what that leads to is management decisions based on habitat and forest connectivity could be seriously flawed as a result of that. Again, it's the foundation for the urban forestry management plan is junk science, And we as a city should not be paying for that. And we certainly shouldn't be making decisions about our home based on that.
I may need to give you a call, Jim.
I'd like to have some feeling now about the executive session. Bob, do you think 20 or 30 minutes is in the range that we're going to need for that?
Yes.
Okay.
I have
Yes,
a question. Is the letter that Rand wrote to Alan Mariner, could that be read to the audience tonight before we do this, or does that have to be done in executive session?
That's really not our letter. That's Rand's letter to them. He, as a courtesy, showed it to us. But he isn't asking for permission or approval or us dispersing it. That was just for our.
Or the letter from Alan to us. Is that from Alan to us? Or
That's
Alan?
public. Yep. Right, Bob?
Well, I was just thinking we could share something with maybe Tip and Barbara.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't really come prepared to make an opinion on that, I'm afraid, this evening. I think that both letters may be releasable to the public, but I would like to double check on that before doing it. All I think we should say about it at this point, and I mean, there's more to come, right? There's no point in getting into the details right now when nothing's happened. We have three emails, one from the land trust, one from the city, and now a second from the land trust. And if there's members of the public who really want to see those letters, they can ask for them. And then I would do an assessment of whether they're exempt under the Public Records Act or not. And if they are not, then they'd be released, of course. And maybe that's what I'm hearing now. We could take this, a verbal request and that I'm hearing now, we should probably consider it a request for these documents, and then I can look at it and make a determination whether they're releasable. I think there's a good chance that they all are, but I'm not prepared to make a decision right now. And of course, once I do say they're releasable, then the decision's made. So I need to check on that, and we'll do that. And if they're releasable, I think based on what I've heard from Barbara, and I think Vince has basically said the same thing, they would like to see them. And so we will release them, make them public if they are not exempt.
You can
I
add
would like
my
to
request.
review it, Bob, because we definitely don't want to make an error in that manner. So
Right.
I would like you to dispassionately, thoughtfully evaluate that thoroughly. And so we can do that. And Tip, you'd like to see it too?
I'd like to add my request because I think it sounds like the issue needs a little help formulating itself publicly, and I think an info bomb in my direction could help that.
Mm-hmm.
Barbara?
Well, I just have a question, and I don't think it's privileged. I just was wondering if you have a date where there's going to be another meeting with the city. And
We do not have a date for a meeting scheduled yet.
yeah, see, the months just go by.
I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
All right, so once Bob has a chance to review that, we will either release or not release, depending on what he finds, and you will be in receipt of what we can release, absolutely, for sure.
And we'll get back in touch with, do we have everyone's email contact? Robin, we have Vince, Barbara, and Chip.
Mhm.
We can.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, so yeah, we'll get back to all three of you.
Thanks.
And
So it's currently 6:40. We'd like to have an executive session for about 30 minutes, which should be about 10 minutes after 7. So you can, I think Robin will explain how it works, but you can either be in a separate room or you can come back at that time.
Right.
There's a small chance we can come back a little bit earlier. So if you wanted to come back in 20 minutes, that'd be great. But we expect to be back here in public session in 30 minutes at the most.
And the other
Okay.
thing we should state is whether we expect any action to be taken when we come out of executive session. I'm not necessarily expecting.
I do not anticipate this.
Yeah.
I do not anticipate. This is mainly informational and strategic and not an action item in my view.
yeah, same here. I would just like to announce to Barbara and Mincy that I put some. We're going to be on the schedule for the Happy Valley meeting in April, so you can come and talk about stuff then.
So Robin, did you want to then explain what the options are for folks in detail?
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put everybody except for the board and Bob into a waiting room. And then if you want to go away and come back, you'll automatically be in the waiting room until and I'll let you in when the board comes back. So if you want to do, just go away and come back, or you can just leave your leave your computer on. So that's what I'll do right now, unless anybody has anything else needs to happen.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Robin. All right, so make it so. So it appears that we're all here, and are the others all gone is the question, Robin? I think they
Yes,
are.
everybody's in the waiting room, and Richard and I are going to turn our sound off.
All
Okay.
right, thank you very much.
So is anybody recording this now at all?
The recording is on and should be turned off, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I can. Hi, everybody. We're back, and we had a spirited discussion, but an incomplete one. What I'd like to suggest we do procedurally is that we, in fact, finish our business and then come back for an additional discussion at the end of this so that we can have the business done and people can go on. If that's acceptable to my colleagues, I'd like to do that. I just say that we did not make any final decisions. We will, at the end of our next session, share with you as much as we can about what's gone on. And at the same time, Bob will work on and resolve sharing these other documents with you. So I'm going to, as a prerogative of the chair, I'm going to go ahead and work through these other business items. So the other old business was kind of a question. Is there anything we had nothing else on our agenda? I'd like to move on to the new business. Dissolution of the Park District, steps to be taken, committee to look at this. Bob, can you outline just briefly what our steps are to dissolution? I forget the exact date. It's the 14th or 17th of September, I think, is when we'll dissolve. We've got some where there's audits to happen. There's a variety of things that need to happen. Robin, did you got your microphone up? Do you want to say something? Go ahead. You're on mute.
Okay, September 21st is the dissolution date.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they can hear me.
No, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. And I'll let Bob anything.
So I think the
else.
issues, I think we do have to do an audit. Is that right? Robin, you've talked with the auditor's office about that?
Yeah, and some of the audit may have to finish after we're dissolved, just because of, they have to look at everything. And I'm fine with following that to its conclusion. So I just wanted to let you guys know that.
Bob, is there other things you'd like to advise us on about the dissolution of the board?
So I don't really have much to say because the statute is sparse on direction. The applicable statute is RCW 35.61.310. There's no case law under it that informs what the different statements mean, but it really is fairly bare bones as to what it says. It simply says that the Board of Commissioners of a Metropolitan Park District may, upon a majority vote of all of its members, dissolve in its entirety any Metropolitan Park District, prorate the liabilities thereof, and turn over to, in this case, it would be the city, so much of the district as is respectfully located therein when. And so you can do this in two instances, one of which is if the city petitions for such dissolution, which they have, and for the assumption of such assets and liabilities. And so that is the basis for it. It's the petition. And then the other means of dissolving would be if 10% of the voters of the city who voted in the general election petition, or in the last general election petitioned the officials, meaning the district board, for such a vote. So we're operating under the first one. And the reason why we are in a position where we really do have to dissolve is we've contractually agreed to dissolve in the interlocal agreement. That was one of the considerations for getting the conservation easement from the city. And so we're contractually bound to do it. And when we do dissolve, the city will get all our assets and liabilities. There's really, as I said, there's not a lot of other guidance on how a dissolution would be played out. I think what Robin's doing in terms of communication with the auditor is one step that I think we need to follow what the auditor tells us. And secondly, I would probably be consulting with the county treasurer's office because they are the district treasurer. I would expect that this would be approved by resolution of the board following a vote that would indicate it's dissolving pursuant to the statute, and all assets and liabilities remaining would go to the city. And there, other than, Robin had a question, for example, about the, was it the safe deposit box or the post office box? I can't remember which, but whichever one it was, do we pay for 6 months or 1 year? It seems to me we could pay for 6 months because by the time that lapses, the district will have dissolved. But if we
In
paid for a
September,
year,
so that's correct. Yeah.
if we paid for a year, then the city would inherit a box, and they would have to pay for if it wasn't all paid up front, then they'd have to, if it's monthly, they'd have to take up the payments. If it had already been paid for in lump sum now, then they would inherit the use of that box presumably, because they would get all assets and liabilities.
So Bob,
so that's really,
I have a
Yeah.
couple of questions for you. One is that,
okay.
is it true that the levy will run through the end of the year, even though we won't be here? So there will be a collection of funds beyond our tenure. Is that correct or not?
I don't know of any way to stop that.
Yeah.
I
I
think
asked about that before, and that's what you said before. So the city is going to get that amount of money that's collected between our dissolution and the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember that Steve Oliver said that directly to my question when he attended the last meeting.
yeah, yeah.
The other assets we have prior to dissolution, we are able to disperse in the way we believe is proper. So putting money into the hands of the person accepting the conservation easement so that it can be defended, I assume is a legitimate purpose of that we have. And we've had an estimate from the land trust that would be between $50,000 and $200,000. And we have some additional funds we can use to do educational and other legal activities or whatever we need to do to complete our mission, and is authorized in our the documents under which we're established.
I would agree. I would agree that I do. It is my opinion that we can transfer funds to the assignee of the conservation easement as a term of that transfer, and that it would not be a gift of public funds to do so, and that we could probably transfer all of our funds to that entity. What I haven't looked at is whether we could assign that entity any of the funds that would come in after our dissolution. And I'm not, that might be a difficult thing to pull off, frankly. But
it will be a modest amount of money anyways.
It'll be whatever the second, well, it'd be the second half taxes in a relatively modest levy.
Right.
So if there's not further discussion, I'd like to move us along because it is becoming a long evening. The monthly
Can I say one thing, Frank?
Sure, Robin.
So could I, what I was thinking I could do is just make up a list of all the things I can think of that have to be dealt with at the end. And then if I can just send that out, and especially if you have any thoughts, Bob, about something that I'm missing or things that might become an issue, that would be helpful. So I just want to make sure all the ducks are in the row by the time we get there,
Robin,
so that's why I'm starting this way early.
Right. So before our next meeting, if you could make that list as exhaustive as you can make it, and get it to Bob for review for any additions or deletions and corrections, and then that can come forward as an item on our next agenda. Sound okay?
Sounds good.
Super, thank you. Monthly expenses and cash flow sheets, petty cash, WECU, as of 2/28/23, $2,617.11. Treasury report, February 28th, 2023. Whatcom County Treasury report shows that we, as of 2/1/23, we had $257,889 in unencumbered balance as of 2/28 at 252,290. We received tax revenues of $1,037 and paid out $6,646 in operating expenses. I need a motion to approve the district payroll input form, wages for Robin Albro, 18 hours in February, a total gross of $450. Do I hear a motion?
I will move approval.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Beatty, seconded by Hymas. Further discussion? If you're in favor of this, raise your right hand and say aye.
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 Aye. John, I didn't see you raise your hand. Aye. Ah, great, good. So unanimously passes. Thank you. The consent agenda, a motion to approve following payments, second, and then we'll need a vote on that. Payments for March 6, 2023, receipt of Robin Albro, $10.08 for a book of stamps. Payment March 17th, 2023, invoice from Robin Albro for $16.76 for mileage for January and February. Payment February 15th, 2023, invoice 02252 for Carmichael Park for $4,869.00 for professional services. And payment March 15th, 2023, invoice 306 from Richard Bartel for $125 exactly for technical services. making our public and online meetings possible. Is there a motion to approve those?
I move
I'll
to
second.
approve.
Thomas moves, Beatty seconds, and further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I take that to be unanimous. Just a reminder, Robin will send an email to 3 board members after the meeting, myself, Mr. Beatty, Mr. McLaughlin, that we should respond confirming the approval of this via email of the consent agenda and payroll, so that we have an official record of having done that act that's written on paper. Next regular meeting is going to be April 26, 2023 at 6 p.m. It'll be a combined Zoom and in-person meeting. The location of the meeting in person will be 1108 11th Street, Suite 303. And if the doors are locked downstairs, phone number will be posted so people can call to let them in. Anyone attending in-person portion of the meeting is required to wear a well-fitting mask per the commissioners of the Chuckanut Community Forest Park District and the order of October 26, 2022. The last thing is that we did not, as we should have, approved the minutes of our meeting, our earlier meeting from February. And I hope people had a chance to look at those minutes. And if there are corrections or any oversights, please bring that up now. It's a very literal transcription of the meeting. And to my eye, it looked accurate. Anybody else have additions, deletions, or corrections?
Nope.
If people had a chance to look at it, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the February meeting.
Move approval.
Move my Beatty.
Yeah.
Do I hear a second?
McLaughlin, what are you doing?
I'll second, although most of what I was there for the meeting is not reflected in the minutes because it was an executive session. But I'd be happy to second.
So motioned by Beatty, seconded by McLaughlin. Further discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes, raise your right hand or say aye.
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 Hand of everybody, that passes unanimously. So the minutes are approved for February. We now, just to say that we didn't make any decisions earlier, I don't know that we'll make a decision, but we may of significance. If anybody wants to stay, they're more than welcome to be put into a room, and we'd like to continue for another, gentlemen, 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Can we limit ourselves to 15?
Why don't we say 20? We don't want to run over because we'll have to come back and redo it. We can perhaps get it done in 15 minutes. I'm at your pleasure. Is 15 or 20? What would you like, guys? 15. That's 2 people. 15 it is. So we will return. It is 7:33. We'll be back in 15 minutes. And if you'd like to, Robin can put you in a room. Why don't you do that, Robin? And we'll be back as soon as we can be back in 15 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, I'll do it now.
All right, thanks.
This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you. So it looks like Barbara and Vensa are still here. I can share with you that we had a spirited discussion, and I think we have a plan for moving forward with the suggestions that Rand made. And I guess the one other thing is that we want to make sure that we have the opportunity also for talking with the city officials about our concerns in the future. So we are concerned, I am concerned about the 70% rate of dogs being off leash in the park. That's what it is right now. I'm concerned about the bikers further fragmenting and degrading the quality of the place. I'm also concerned about the ongoing proliferation of social trail. But I think the key thing that we all care about is prioritizing preservation, and that there's a clear preference for preservation over recreation. And those are issues that I think we want to raise. What we decided was to go forward with Rand's effort to resolve the issues as best he can that were raised by Mr. Mariner. And I think that's possible. I think that will happen. And Bob will represent us. And I think that we're willing and ready to go forward with that additional meeting if Mr. Mariner is willing to have it. Bob, you had something to say?
I was just going to try to cut you off because I think that's probably about all we can say right now.
Yeah. Right. I thank you for your patience.
Frank, could I add a change in language or perspective? When we talk about prioritizing conservation or protection over recreation, that could be interpreted actually differently than what's actually going to happen.
Well, let me say more carefully. That was not careful language, but that recreation should not compromise the ecological integrity of the park and degrade it further.
Much better.
Yeah, that's a better way. That's a more accurate way to say that our
we're not excluding recreational use. We're allowing it. We just,
it should be limited to things that don't degrade the biological integrity of the space. That's exactly right. Thank you, John.
I like to refer to that stuff as passive recreation.
Well,
I'll hold it. Just as a general.
We're 2 hours into the meeting. For those of you that haven't had dinner, you probably want to go have it. If there is not further discussion, Bob is going to review our ability to release those documents, and we'll get back to those of you that are interested in that as soon as we can. And we'll see everybody at the next meeting, and hopefully everybody will have many things to celebrate at that point. Thank you, everybody. And hearing no further business and believing that we completed all of our work on the agenda that was listed on the agenda, I'd like to adjourn the meeting.
One more thing. I just wanted to say that I looked into some of these ways to put out fires with planes. And
I'm sorry. Thank you.
There's a smaller kind of a plane that can make like 10 dumps in the time one of those big planes can make a dump. And they're more cost effective to fly. And if you have a small fire, it just gets it really quicker that way too, because you can get to it quicker. And Sweden makes them. The name of them I forgot at the moment, but there's several different varieties. But Sweden makes a really good one anyway. So
thanks, Hugh. That's great.
I have further to investigate, but that's a little report there.
Thank you, Hugh. Anything else? Thanks, everybody.
No, thank you for your work, you guys. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for coming to the meeting.
Thanks, Robin.
Good night,
You'll
everybody.
wander back with the key?
Yes, I will come as soon as we get done here.
Whenever. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you all.
Oh.